So it's leg day at the gym, right? And I have a couple exercises in at this point, and I am starting to do hip thrusters,
Ooh.
right? Like off like the bench, you know what I mean? Back on the bench, barbell over my my hips, and I don't have too much weight on there. I got like maybe like 2.5 plates, and I'm just doing sets of 6, right? So I'm on my second set. I'm planning on doing 4, 6, and I'm going up weight each set. So it's like my second set. And I got the bar over my waist, right? And I go to lift up. And as I get to like the top of the motion, the peak of the motion, I fart, right? But shit came out with that fart.
That's called a shot.
So this is like the third rep in, right? And I'm like, fuck. And then in my head, I'm like, yo, like I'm trying to like calculate how much shit came out. And I'm like, I don't think it was that much. You know what I mean? So I'm like, yo, I'm just gonna finish my set. So I finish my set with the shit in my boxers, and then I put the bar down very carefully, try not to sit down on my ass, right?
Yeah, don't want to spread it.
So I think, all right, like what the fuck am I gonna do, right? Like there's shit like in my shorts. Like there's like quite a bit. It's not just a shart, like it's more than that. So I'm looking around. I'm like, all right, I just bunch up my shorts like this. I'm like, fuck it. I'm just gonna go for a run to the bathroom. Like fuck being embarrassed. Like you gotta take care of the situation. So that's what I did. Just looked around. When the coast was clear, bunched up my shorts, ran for the bathroom, went to one of the stalls, and I just tried cleaning the shit off of my boxers with the toilet paper into the toilet. Right. I got as much of it off as I could. Thankfully, it didn't leak through onto my shorts, right? So I clean my ass, I clean everything, and then I just put my shorts back on because there's no shit on my shorts. I leave, I go to the sink, and I start using the hand fucking soap and start washing my boxers. And like I do this like 3 or 4 times until like I do the smell test. Okay, I think it's good, and I wring out the water, and I just put my boxers in my bag, and I leave and finish my workout like nothing fucking happened, bro.
Nice guy. That's a fucking pro move, man. That's commitment.
Yeah, dude.
This is I believe this is the dangers of living in like Colombia or your Bali's or Indonesia's or certain places like that where there could be some funky vibes in the water. Sometimes sometimes a fart can be a risky exercise.
Oh, nice guy. Nice.
I have if we're gonna go down that vein, right?
Yeah,
I have a story that's similar. Well, it doesn't include me though, luckily. I have not done that in the gym. But when I was a kid, I definitely thought I needed to fart and shat myself. But I knew a guy at a gym I used to go to, and I won't mention his name. Anyway, he was quite a strong guy, powerlifter, held a few records in Australia and maybe internationally, I'm not sure. Anyway, he was doing a pivot block in his strength training protocol. And so instead of doing squats, he was doing leg presses just for, a different stimulus. And he's the sort of guy that would wear like super tight tights at the gym, like compression tights or like tight shorts, skins or whatever the compression shorts are. And just them, that's it. No shorts over the top, no nothing, okay? He's doing leg press one day. And like we're around because he's got decent weight on the leg press, and he lowers the weight down, and next minute like hear this noise, and I was like, "What the fuck was that?" And he's just like, "Oh," and instead of stopping, all right, he just kept doing leg press and just shat, and I shit you not, out of those tights, pushing like the shit coming like it was like soft serve getting pushed through a tea towel or something or through a set of sheets, and he just kept going. He did like 4 or 5 reps continuously shitting himself, and then it was a whole thing. But yeah, that's my only experience with someone shitting themselves in the gym.
Dude, I have a question. Like, what happened immediately after? What did he do?
He finished his set and then went to the bathroom.
What about the shit on the floor? What was there shit on the floor?
Yeah, there's not a huge amount, but there was shit around that area. Yeah, I did not
Eh,
stick around to see any of that. I was just shocked and
oh, okay, okay,
disgusted, and I
okay.
was like, oh, I'm out. Like, not a big fan of playing with shit really.
Yeah, 100%. So was he there with his boys or with his buddies, or he was just there alone?
Pretty much there alone, but like, it was a community of people like that lifted and whatever, and so we were all sort of around at that point. But yeah, it was a full blown, and he just like it was like, halfway through his set, and he was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna finish my set. And I was like, that is such commitment. Like, I definitely wouldn't do that. I would stop, go to the bathroom, come back, redo the set. But he's the sort of guy like, I got to do the set. I'm halfway through, like there's a different mindset happening there. Anyway,
Yeah.
that was a fun way to start.
Welcome back to Idiots Squared, quite possibly the most open-minded podcast in the world, where two complete fucking morons are just trying to figure this shit out.
Literally. Nice intro, guy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So, welcome. You've had a busy week. I've also had a busy week. That was a fun story, actually. That made me laugh a lot.
Shit stories are always good.
Yeah, as long as they, well, even when they happen to you, it's how you look at it, right? So we wanted to discuss this week the concept of instinctual training.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Something you sort of follow that to a degree. I sort of follow that to a degree. But like, let's start off with like what why you sort of like, why do we want to talk about this? What is it for you? What does it mean to you? How do you sort of apply it, etc. This is in regards to strength training, by the way, or health and fitness. Trying to improve performance in some aspect, or improve body composition, or improve health. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just like naturally got into it. And then the first time I heard like the concept was on Seth Force. Is that his last name? Seth Force?
I think it's Feroci.
Okay, on Seth Feroci's YouTube channel. So shout out Seth Feroci. He's an interesting guy. But I first heard it there, and I was like, oh, like I'm kind of like been doing that sort of. You know what I mean? And he mentioned like, yeah, like it's something that takes years to like, even get started on, because you have to know your body really well and be connected with your mind and body really well for it to be effective, I believe. And it just takes like years and years of experience to get to that point. And basically it's just training to your needs, right? To sort of improve, like you said, those health improvements. And that's basically it from my understanding. But if you're able to elaborate, please
Yeah.
do. But yeah.
So I would classify instinctual training as, yes, once you've sort of gone through the many different ways you can build muscle or get stronger, and you've tried a variety of different loading schemes or rep schemes or exercises or training modalities and all of these different things that you've sort of tried, and you sort of find things that work better for you or don't work as good for you or fit in with your schedule or your lifestyle or any of these sorts of things, you start to develop a sort of tool bag of training tools or modalities. All right. And over time, if you're radically honest with yourself, and you have sort of are able to conquer your inner bitch, so to speak, you're able to know that you can do the hard things to get results, and you're not just avoiding doing hard things, that kind of thing. Like, you actually lean into doing the hard stuff to try and get the results. You develop this sort of instinctual way of just doing things that or you have seen to work for you and that fit in well with your lifestyle. So one way to describe it is to sort of say what it isn't. So typically, when you start training, there's the bro split. If you're a bodybuilder, like chest Mondays, shoulders Tuesdays, legs Wednesdays, whatever, whatever the split is these days. There's all of those different splits. You can do like a 2 on 1 off split. You can do an upper lower split. You can do a push pull lower split. You can do a push pull, quads hamstrings split. Like there's all these different splits you can do. And so that's like not what it is. They're like the sort of predefined where you've got 3 sets of 10 or 4 sets of 6 or the predefined amount. Okay. Whereas the instinctual training is more like day to day you're assessing what you're capable of, but you don't necessarily assess it before you get to the gym. And the reason I'll say that is because a lot of the time you might not be feeling great, but that could just be a state that you're in. It might not be an actual reflection of your physical preparedness. Okay. So when you get to the gym and you start moving through the motions, you see like, oh, I'm feeling strong today, so to speak, or I'm feeling, energized. So I'll push this a little bit further, or I'll take it back a bit because I'm not feeling as good today. And I've gone through the warm-ups and I'm still not feeling as energized. And so that's sort of what that instinctual training is. Instead of having a set defined program that you follow specifically every single day, every single week with specific numbers and specific loading, there's a little bit more room for maneuver. It's sort of more like you instinctively train based on more about your physical preparedness and how you're feeling and how your body can perform in that day, in that week, in that month. That's sort of how I would sort of describe it. I typically lean towards that now, mainly because my goals have changed, right? Like I'm not trying to get super massive. I'm not trying to get super strong. So like I have been downsizing for the last, 2 years. And I'm at a place now where all I'm looking to do is just maintain sort of what I've got and improve my degrees of freedom. So I'm trying to improve my physical capacity across a broad range of tasks and skills, right? Like when I was bodybuilding, I got nice and big, right? And all that was sort of like reducing my degrees of freedom. I could do fuck all except lift heavy stuff, eat and sleep. Walking was hard, breathing was hard, even sleeping was hard. It's actually funny, right? Bodybuilding is a form of de-evolution, right? If you take it to an extreme, you're actually de-evolving yourself in an aspect, right? You're actually reducing your capacity to do things in the physical world. You get really good at one thing, but you get ungood or less good at every other thing, if that kind of makes sense. Have you found that?
Absolutely, dude. When you're doing just instinctual training, do you find that you still have to take do you take planned breaks? For example, some people say 3 weeks off a year or 1 week off every 3 months or deload weeks. So there's lots of like different ways to do planned recovery. Do you find that that's still necessary when you're training instinctively?
For me, no. But mainly because, again, my goals are slightly different. So even with instinctual training, you've got to keep in mind your goals, right? So for me, with the context, we can say it here. It's like I'm not trying to get bigger and stronger, so to speak. I'm just looking to maintain what I've got and improve my physical capacity in different areas. So I'm trying to have, the ability to move in weird positions and like fall over and not break stuff and like be more functional, which is a hilarious overly used term. But I'm trying to increase my degrees of freedom in physical space. So what I do is I train 4 days a week. That's it. And then so I have 3 rest days a week, which is ample. But I structure my training so that I have 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 2 days off. But my 2 days off on the weekend aren't really 2 days off because I go and do other physical activities. Like you ride motorbikes, you go beach, swimming, whatever. Like, but there's some sort of other physical activity. It's just not weight training, so to speak. And then 3 times a week, I do recovery. Right. So I do sauna for at least 45 minutes, 3 times a week. And if I don't do the 3 sessions of sauna, right, I do a longer session of sauna. So I'll do an hour and a half of sauna. I use the infrared sauna, not the steam sauna. And then I do 11 minutes total of ice bath a week. And so I split them up over the days. And I typically do them earlier in the day because I find it very energizing to do that. I also do that because it helps with my stress management. It teaches me how to breathe better, teaches me how to stay calm in a stressful situation, and I enjoy the effects of that cold exposure. So I like the clarity that I get afterwards. The analogy I use, or the way I try to describe it to people, is you're watching YouTube and it's like 240 pixels or 480p. It's like hella pixelated. That's how life looks before you get in the ice bath. And when you get in the ice bath, it's like panic and all this other stuff, and you learn to breathe. And when you get out of the ice bath, it's almost like the world renders in 1080 HD or 4K. Everything just seems clearer and more high def. And my appreciation for things is greater. And, you can link it to dopamine production and all this other stuff. But it just feels better. I perform better. I enjoy the effects it has on body composition, right? Like it helps with the white fat to brown fat conversion and a bunch of other stuff. There's norepinephrine production, anti-inflammatory properties, etc. So that's how I do it. So for me personally, I don't need to take 3 weeks off a year. I don't need to do any of that. But I can understand circumstances where that would be applicable for people. That kind of makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I love, what's that?
What about with you?
Like how I structure my workouts, or how I go,
do you need to take those? Do you need to take week off periods to recover?
Oh yeah, right. That was the initial question. So I always think about doing it, but then I never do, because I just tell myself, nah, like I know my body. Like if I need to take a break, like I'll take one. There's no need to do a structured break. But however, I'm not active every day, so I'll work out like 4 or 5 times a week, right? And I'll do cardio before and after the gym. So I do all my activity in like one block during the day, which is not optimal, but it's just how I have to do it for now. So that's like 4 or 5 times a week. And then the rest of the time I'm sitting, working. Well, actually, that's not true. I'm active when we go out to record videos. I'm pretty active. Like,
yeah,
right,
you would get it.
So it's a bit more. Yeah, so it's a bit more then, right? Because like, it's crazy because like it takes us like 5 hours to record a video at a restaurant.
Wow.
So, and I'm running around the whole time doing it.
Yeah. So you would have a lot of like indirect physical activity.
Yeah, but other than that, sitting on my computer. Yeah.
So do you break that up with your sitting, or you like to get long sessions?
Yeah, I love long sessions. I love like sitting down and working on one thing for like 16 hours. I just get like so lost in it, and I just have like I have a really high ability to concentrate on like one task. And sometimes like I get antsy though, right? Like I'll like start like getting like uncomfortable from doing something, but I'm always able to like overcome that. And then once I overcome that is when I can do the 16 hours without stopping. I think like Miss Bunny will bring me food. My wife will just bring me food, and I'll eat and I'll continue editing.
Yeah, I love that flow state. I love that deep work flow state. And you're right.
Yeah.
When you get lost in it, that's exactly my experience. And I love those things. I don't get to do that all the time. I try and structure things so that I can have big blocks of, deep work sessions, because I think that's where some of the most meaningful stuff happens. That's where like the real achievement happens. But I have a slightly different structure to you, because I sit, but I have a certain chair that's like a saddle. So that the sitting position is very ergonomically nice. Like it's a nice ergonomic to sit in. It's not like a traditional chair where you can sort of slouch or whatever. It's makes you sort of sit straight, so to speak. And then the structure of it is it adjusts up and down, and so I can adjust so that my legs are touching the ground while I'm sitting. They could be almost straight or they could be fully bent, but it's got like a bunch of different foot positions that allow you to sort of saddle the chair instead of slouching in it, so to speak. But I also have adjustable desk, like the stand-up desk, so I can lower the desk. Bye, guy. or I can raise the desk, right? So then it's like, oh, that kind of thing. And
Nice,
I found
guys.
that makes a huge difference because I can switch from sitting to standing and keep that sort of activity. Okay, back to instinctual training, all right? So you mentioned you train 4 to 5 days a week. Okay. I would assume, you can tell me if I got this wrong, I would assume that the days that you train 5 days a week is when you have the time to. And the days that you train, the week, sorry, that you train 4 days a week is when you possibly don't have that extra time to train for the 5th day. Is that about right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that be taking away a little bit from the instinctual part because I'm doing it when I have time, right? So I believe that that would not classify as full instinct training.
Well, see, yeah, I would say that it probably is because what you're doing is you're doing what you can when you can. And as long as you're still trending towards your goals, I don't know, like, you can sort of, be the judge of that, whether or not you are, then it's working,
Mhm.
right? I think that as long as you're taking a step in the direction you want to go, it's better than not taking a step in that direction. And
Yeah,
so
true.
that kind of makes sense. Like, I still think that we spoke about goals and systems and things like that last week, right? And we said, goals are necessary, but they're not like, well, they're not necessarily necessary. They can be useful to give you a point to focus on, but putting the system habits in place is significantly more valuable, right? And so you have the systems and the habits of, knowing and wanting to train regularly because of the health benefits, things it does for your body, right? And your goal is, whatever your goal is currently, probably build some muscle, lose some fat or something. That seems to be like the typical goal for most people, but it could be something similar to that. And the fact that you are training, and as long as you are progressing your lifts or your ability to handle volume or intensity, you're building that over time, you're progressing that over time, you'll be making positive adaptations.
Yeah, absolutely. I found since I started doing instinctful training that I've been able to get a lot better anaerobically. I've noticed that for sure. And I wouldn't say I've gotten stronger, but I've become better at training. I never have any injuries. I never have any issues training. My body is always like at 100% unless like I'm tired that day. Um, so I did have a knee issue for a while, and actually shout out to knees over toes guy for getting me through that shit because fuck, that was a long time. I had a fucked up knee. Yeah,
Yeah, so but your knee thing was from a long time ago, right? Like your knee thing
yeah,
was from way back in the day, and you did the bro splits, you did the bodybuilding, you did all these different things, and it never helped any of it. I remember you sort of told the story, but then you started doing some of his recommendations with the getting the knee over the toe, the backwards walking, the different positions that aren't typically taught, right? And again, you went to school for this whole thing, and they never even mentioned any of it. I went to school for this whole stuff, and they never mentioned any of those things. It was just like, and it seemed really odd, but like that's a testament. I see, to me, that's also more instinctual as well, because it's like, well, I've been doing X, Y, and Z, and this has never got better. All right. And so the instinctual thing is like, okay, maybe don't keep doing X, Y, and Z. Maybe try some A, B, and C, or try something different, you know? And so that to me is a form of instinctual as well, right? Now, you
yeah,
can get caught in a trap though, where you just try all different things all the time. And it's hard to make progress when you're doing so much variance. Okay. You sort of do need to, pick channels for certain points of time. If that makes sense. Like, so you're not
yeah,
continuing knees over toes guy to build your legs up. You were doing that to sort of rehab an injury and to improve the function of a joint and reduce pain.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then you can incorporate some of those techniques into your new training program and then going and finding exercises that still help you to achieve your hypertrophy or your strength goals, right? That don't result in that same problem occurring again.
Absolutely. Like learning a little bit of information from everybody goes a really long way in the world of training because there's so many people doing like really cool shit out there. And if you just find them and learn from them, like and apply it to yourself, like it's incredible, like the information that's out there with that, man. That's
Yeah, I
back in the
agree.
day. Yeah.
You go.
No, just back in the day, you had the bro at the gym, you know, the guy that sold the steroids and the guy that knew like everything about working out, and you would just be like, yo, like, you know, if you're asking him everything, yo, do I break 90 or not? Fucking right, you break 90. You go all the way down, son.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's arse to grass or nothing. And it's
Yeah,
like,
ass to
well,
grass or
no,
nothing.
the opposite is true. It's like, no, just doing some squats is better than doing no squats. No matter like how you're doing it, it's better to get that load, right? That
Yeah.
was funny. You mentioned the bro in the gym, right? So it was before forums on the internet. It was muscle mags, right? And they also would sell drugs. And it's like, just do this exercise, right? These are the best exercises, but then buy this supplement and then you'll actually get results. You know, like take out testosterone and you'll really get the result. The guy at the gym's like, you just got to bench, squat, and dead. Or if he was a power lifter, and if he was a bodybuilder, it was like chest Mondays, shoulder Tuesdays, etc. He's like, more sets to failure. And then you go beyond failure. And then, you know, you walk back in after a week and you're like, I can't move. And he's like, that's because you need trend and sus. And you can't move again, just up your dosage. And it's like, that does work, but is it sustainable? Is it, you know, healthy long term? Like what price are you paying for all of that abuse you're putting your body through?
That's hilarious. Yo, that was funny, dude. What's your opinion on... Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was going to ask you, what's your opinion on ice? Because we're going back to like knees over toes guy and like recovery. Do you have an opinion on ice at all?
Like icing your injuries?
Yeah, injuries. Exactly.
Yeah. I think, okay, so inflammation is like a natural process that occurs after an injury or damage. Okay. Now, I think ice is valid in the point that if you need to get back and perform instantly and the local swelling, right, is going to inhibit your ability to do that or inhibit your performance, then ice can be a valid strategy. Yeah. But just icing things, I'm pretty sure there's a fair bit of research on this that says that just like icing the injuries doesn't necessarily increase the recovery time or the healing time, right? Sometimes it could impede the recovery because it sort of gets rid of that inflammation process, which is a natural part of the recovery process, right? But I do believe there is some validity, and I found this for myself anecdotally and with people that I've spoken to about this and put protocols together for this. I do think there is some validity in using cold, heat, and neutral as a mechanism to like act as an indirect pump, so to speak. So when you heat things up, things get more jiggly, right? So that's really hot. And when you cool things down, they get less jiggly. Okay. That's just like a really simple way to think about temperature. Things that are hot are vibrating more or oscillating at a higher rate, and things that are cool are oscillating at a lower rate. And so typically when you heat things up, an area it'll expand. And when you cool it down, it'll shrink. Okay. And so you can sort of, if something isn't healing at the rate you want, or you want to sort of improve your body's, or say you can't move, right, because the joint is involved in your locomotion or walking or something like that, but you still want to have that sort of pumping of fluid. Our heart only pumps sort of one direction. Veins don't have any pump behind them. They rely on muscles and movement to sort of get that venous return back to the heart. Okay. And so if you can't do that and you can't move, you're not getting that same sort of level of flow back. And you can use hot, cold, and neutral as a sort of indirect pump to start moving those things again. So if you've got an injury that's like sort of, really swollen, doesn't seem to be getting better, you can sometimes employ a strategy of like cold, hot, neutral, or hot, cold, neutral, or hot, neutral, cold, etc., to try and get that area to start moving that fluid again. That kind of, I feel like that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, logically, I can see how that would make sense. And I've also read some research about how ice isn't all that it's like, what's the saying, coughed up to be?
cracked up to be. Yeah. No,
Cracked
I
up to
agree.
be?
I would
Yeah.
agree with that. I think it's a remnant of an older time. But like I said, it can be useful, right? It's not that like it's a bad thing. It can impede recovery, but there is a valid use case for it, which is like if you say you're in a championship game or whatever, and you get a something and it's swelling, right? And that swelling's inhibiting your ability to perform on the field. Icing it straight away to get rid of some of that swelling so that you can go back out and do what you need to do is a valid strategy. Is it ideal for the long-term recovery of that injury? Possibly not. But that's what people play professional sports for, is they put their bodies on the line for the championship, so to speak. So it's that understanding the trade-offs.
So training periodization is basically when athletes will schedule a workout regime in order to attain or achieve optimal performance in a specific time of the year. So they'll structure their entire training protocol for like a couple of competitions, let's say, during the year. Do you think that training periodization has a place for athletes above instinctful training? And do you think that periodization training works? And if it does it only work at the high level, or can it work for everybody?
Yeah, so periodization definitely has a place. So the hard thing with instinctual training is you kind of need a lot of training data to get good at it. It's like, machine learning or large language models. You feed it, 10 lines of text, it's going to be terrible. You feed it 100 billion lines of text and it starts to get better because it's got more training data. It's got more samples to pick from what works and what doesn't work, or what's good or what's bad, that kind of thing. And I'd say the same is true for instinctual training. So if you're willing to fuck up and make heaps of mistakes and try lots of different stuff, instinctual training could work really well. Okay. But if you're not, and you just want to get into something that, has lots of evidence to show that these things work, then that sort of traditional periodization is valid. And it definitely does work, right? Is it optimal or ideal or whatever? Like, so many factors that come into this that you can never attain optimal, So, someone can write you the best training program, okay, with all the right exercises and sets and reps and everything, right? Recovery time, etc. But if you fuck up on your nutrition, or you fuck up on your sleep, or you fuck up on your stress outside of the gym, it's not going to be optimal. You won't be able to adhere to that. In order to adhere to an optimal training program, all the other things have to be optimal as well. That kind of makes sense. So I think periodization is valid. There's many different kinds of periodization. You've got like linear periodization, block periodization, daily undulating periodization, which I like a lot. This is more of like an instinctual kind of thing, or DUP it's called. And then you've got conjugate programming, which is like the stuff Louis Simmons sort of pioneered in the US, and before that it was Russia. And they're all valid. They all have their use case. And so the reason I think periodization typically is good for most people is you don't have to have all that training data. You can just get a program that's been tried and true, and you can start implementing it for yourself. It also, having a program to follow specifically, takes out so much noise. It stops you having to think about all these different things. You can just follow that program. And even better, if you pay a coach who actually listens and cares and is educated in these things, they will listen to your feedback or ask you the necessary questions to adjust and sort of tweak your program to better suit your needs. And so that's a whole bunch of thinking and learning and worrying about that you don't need to do, right? You can just, here's a program, turn up, do the program. So for a lot of athletes, I think it's probably really useful, like, turn up, do X, Y, and Z, get out of here. Whereas if they were doing the more instinctual thing, it's like they'd have to sort of know about exercises. They'd have to, know what their goal is, how to achieve it. What, are they trying to get speed, or are they trying to get power? Are they trying to develop muscular endurance, or are they trying to develop aerobic versus anaerobic? Like, what rep scheme do I need to do that, et cetera? There's all these variables that you have to sort of understand to be able to instinctively train. Whereas, for an athlete, if you're or a general populations, a business person, whatever, you might not want to have to think about any of those things. And so it's very efficient and very easy to just get a program and follow that program, or that periodization scheme.
Right. Do you think it's possible for a competitive CrossFit athlete to do instinctual training?
Yeah, it definitely would be possible for sure. I think a lot of them, as they get like more into the sport, they've got more experience. I think most of them would sort of tend to end up doing that anyway, because like once you intrinsically develop a decent understanding of your own body, it's efficient to do it. It's just you've got to go through so much time and effort and trial and error to get to that point that it's probably not practical for most people. That makes sense. Like I think that they would follow periodization schedules and training blocks and all that kind of different stuff up until a certain point. Once they get to a certain point, they would probably switch naturally to a form of instinctual training, or they'd loosely have stuff, or they'd rock up on the day and write a workout out because they know like I've got to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm deficient in my horizontal, like no, I'm deficient in my overhead press. Okay, so I need to focus on this, and this. And that's the only thing that's lagging at the moment. So I can take a rest from the other stuff as much, and I can really just narrow in on here. And that they'll be self-aware enough to know those things about themselves. Actually, that's a key point. Your ability to be train instinctively, I think, has a correlation with your level of self-awareness. The more self-aware you are, and the more tools you're aware of to augment the outcomes, the more or the better you are, or more likely you are to be good at instinctually training. The higher the capacity you have to become an instinctual trainer, I think. The more self-aware you are, the better you could be at instinctual training.
Great point, Ruse. Great point.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is what's that?
I said I only just thought of that. Yeah.
That was a great point, though. Do you think that there is one sport that would benefit from instinctual training in comparison to others? Or is this solely an individualistic thing?
Nothing pops into my head to start with. Like I didn't know like answer just like, yeah, that sport. But I think some sports you like a decent amount of them, like if, again, once you've got all this training data, I feel like it just sort of becomes natural to be a little bit more instinctive. It feels silly to constrain yourself to these sort of arbitrary constraints of like doing this block or, linear periodization or that kind of stuff. I feel like it does become a little bit more, and like this is the other thing too. So as you get more training data, or as you progress through these things in time, like the more you train, you pick up little nicks, you pick up little idiosyncrasies, you pick up little error codes here and there. And so a very structured or rigid program doesn't necessarily account for that unless it's written by someone who's very understanding and has all of that experience. And I think those programs are probably rarer. And because it's so specific and nuanced, there isn't a large amount of those on the market. Whereas like, everyone's seen the starting strength program. Everyone's seen the, 5-3-2 or 2, what is it? 5-3-1 or 5-3-2 program, whatever. Everyone's seen like the, Bulgarian program or the Russian volume program, 10 sets of 10, like that kind of stuff. They're so available. Are they optimal or ideal? No. But like, they're things you can start there and see how it works. You can start to develop your own training data. But yeah, no, I don't think there's any sport that would lend itself more. Do you think there is?
I don't know if there is. So this is why I wanted to bring it up, because I had another point about that. Is that one thing in sports? This is my opinion, by the way, is that talent is much superior to hard work. I think athletes like in the NBA, in soccer or football, like whatever sport, I feel like if you're talented, right, someone who is working way harder than you is not going to beat you. And I think most people that are at the top level just have this innate ability at the sport, and a much lower percentage is allocated to like people who've got there by purely hard work. I think some people just have this amazing talent that can take them so far, and they don't really need to have a structured diet or a structured workout protocol. They can just instinctually eat and instinctively train, and they will still be the best in the world. What do you think
Yeah,
about
there's certain conditions that we need to sort of outline. So talent plays a huge role, okay? But there are cases where hard work just can beat talent, but you've got to have a bit of talent and hard work, and be trying to achieve something that is, you know, sort of possible for your biology or your biological organism. You know, like there isn't much of a point of being 4'5" or, you know, whatever, and trying to become a center in the NBA. You know, it's just like anatomically, you're just not going to. So no matter how much hard work you put in, you can't really change that outcome. Okay, so, you know, picking the path you want to go down. Okay, so I think that if you're picking the wrong path, no amount of hard work will really help you get there, right, from the start. But, you know, there's probably other paths that you could pick and work harder and get somewhere. There's a good book, I think it's Game Changers by Malcolm Gladwell.
I've actually heard of the author. That's surprising because I don't read very much.
Yeah, anyway, I'll find it and put a link in there. So anyway, he goes on about like people that were he studied successful people, right? And so okay, hopefully I don't butcher this. He gives an example in the book, right? And he did an analysis of pro hockey players in Canada, right? Now, what do you think is the best indicator of a kid or a person's ability to become a professional hockey player or be a good hockey player?
Like if we're just looking at like one thing, like isolating one attribute.
Yeah, like what do you think has like a very high correlation with, you know, like out of hockey players, like, so you've got all these different kids growing up playing hockey, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's like sort of one attribute that like you think or correlate, something that could correlate with them becoming a good hockey player, like, or becoming professional in the future?
Just give me a hint. Is it a physical attribute, or what type of attribute is it? Or will that give too much away?
No. It is physical in a sense, but it's also not, right? But it's not what you would think it would be.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. I have no idea, Roops. I have no idea. So then
I didn't know either, and it blew my mind, and it wasn't what I thought it would be. So apparently, it's actually the month you're born, right? And then when you think about it, it makes heaps of sense. Okay, so when you really think about it, it makes a ton of sense, right? So the way that it works I believe this is true in Canada, it might be true in America as well, but you know, if you're born on the 1st of January, okay, and then someone's born on the 25th of the 25th of December, you guys are classified as the same age, you know. So if the person that's born on the 1st of January and the person that's born on the 25th of December, they're both classified as being 10 years old. Yeah. But if you think about it, the person that's born on the 1st of January has like 11 plus months more development than the kid that's born at the end. Yeah. So it was how early. So whether you were born in January, February, March, or April, that was a huge indicator for whether or not you would make it to become a professional hockey player. Yeah. Because at a young, and this is sort of getting into this point, right? So what he said, when you think through this, what ends up happening is you realize, oh my God, when you start playing hockey as a kid, okay, if you're 6 months more developed than another kid at a young age, that makes a huge difference. You know, like kids, like, you can double your height and your weight in a year sort of thing. So if you've already got half of body mass more than another kid and half a height more than another kid, and you've got 6 months more practice moving your body, you can destroy other kids that are just not as developed as you because they were born later in the year. Okay. So what ends up happening is these kids end up dominating at a young age. They end up getting selected for all of the special schools, all of the representative teams, and they end up getting significantly more training data than the other kids. All right, so much more training data. Because they are more dominant at a young age, they get picked for all the teams. They get taken to the camps, they get special training, they just get so much more training data, right? And so whether or not those kids were more skillful, I don't know. They ended up becoming more skillful purely because they had training data. Okay. And so those kids could have just had that advantage because they were slightly more physically developed because of their age. Like they had 3 months more development, they had 6 months more development, And so that's what sort of gave them that position. And then over time, they end up becoming more skilled because they spend more time drilling skills. Yeah. Like if you don't get picked in that rep team as a kid, you don't play 8 games of hockey a week. You just play 1 game of hockey a week. Well, if you compare that to a kid that's playing 8 games of hockey a week at a high level, his skill acquisition is going to go way up compared to the other kid that's only playing 1 game a week at a lower level. And so that's kind of like, I find it hard to distinguish between that hard work and skill because I think so much of skill is early on hard work and training data. And I think, we could take, you could take almost any kid or young person and put them into a field. And if you've got the right feedback mechanisms in place, you've got the right stimulus in the environment, I think, a very high percentage of the time, that kid could become whatever they want, provided there's that environment, the feedback systems, and the ability to, iterate and learn. I think, it's sort of not, it's possibly infinite what can be achieved. I don't think that someone's just born to be a computer programmer. I think some kids are, but a lot of the time it's because they had a lot of exposure to computers as a kid and they had someone that could teach it to them in an easy way. So yeah, I find it hard to distinguish between that hard work and that skill. I think if you apply hard work early on, it's how you develop skill. And we just don't necessarily see it.
Great point, Rubes. Well done. Well articulated. What do you think about oh, sorry. No, my question was going to be what do you do when you go into the gym then? Like, can you take us through, let's say, a typical workout? Like, what kind of training do you do? How do you do it?
I train the most basic, simple split you can imagine. I do upper body one day, lower body the next day, and I rest. Then I do upper body and then lower body. Just bare bones, basic stuff. So for me, I'll make sure that I get at 6 to 8 sets per body part per week minimum. That's pretty much it. But I just look I use different I use strange metrics. I know how much I've done I've been training now for 10 plus years. And so I kind of know what are my all-time PB lifts on certain exercises, on certain machines, etc. So I just, back of my head kind of just know all that. And so my goal is to just not get heaps shit. As long as, I do whatever I need to based on how I feel. I'll train anywhere from 1 rep to 30 or 40 reps. Right? I got a huge rep range. And I just make sure that I'm improving in some metric. So for the last year, my goal has been to be more athletic, right, in certain activities. And so the big activity that I've been focusing on is motorbike riding or dirt bike riding or enduro or hard enduro, that kind of stuff, where you on a dirt bike and you flying through the bush or climbing hills and mountains and going exploring for a day or days or weeks at a time, that kind of thing. And so you're standing up all the time and you're going over intense terrain, etc. So when I was bigger, my legs would just blow up. I'd get that pump instantly and they would just feel like lead balloons on me, right? So I had a lot of anaerobic capacity in my legs. I could push heavy weights for a couple of reps, but my muscular endurance, beyond 40 reps of doing half squats, was terrible. And so I switched my training from less super heavy or volume in that regard to more endurance based stuff or muscular endurance based stuff, and trying to downsize a bit. And then I was really strong in the squat position, in the leg press position, in the deadlift position. But anything that had a rotation, right, or some sort of odd angle, I wasn't as good as I could have been. So now my training sort of revolves around doing like odd stuff, or you call it like odd lifts, where your body's in like an odd position. It's not in the typical sort of position. But to give you an example of what a workout would look like, right? So we'll walk in to the gym, and I have a training partner I've been training with for a number of years, and me and him will be like, oh, we did X, Y, and Z last week. It's like, you want to keep trying to push that up, or you want to keep playing? It's like, yeah, we'll do that. So then we'll do that. Or it's like, yeah, we've been doing this for like 6 or 8 weeks now. You still reckon we're making progress, or are you getting a bit, like, is it getting we've sort of flogged this horse, or we've run this for 10 weeks now. We're sort of like, the improvement's marginal. It's a very small improvement. So we go, okay, we'll switch it up and we'll pick a different exercise. And my philosophy is sort of like, you're only as strong as your weakest link. Okay. So in a chain, if you have a big chain and they're all massive big links, right? But then you've got one tiny link that links all the big links. Well, that's your weakest one. Okay. So instead of trying to make the rest of your chain bigger and better, it just makes no sense to do that. It's just focus on the weak link and make it stronger. And so for me, when I'm structuring my training, I try and find stuff that I suck at. Like, what's something that I really suck at? And then I just try and get better at that. And then I find that that's sort of a way of strengthening the whole chain, because I've already got a lot of the chain where I want it to be. I just trying to address my weak links. And like I mentioned, the rotational stuff and the bending in odd angles and that kind of thing, they were my weak links. And so that's what I've spent time training. Kind of like an unsatisfying answer, guy. Sorry.
No, that's fucking beautiful, guy. So, like you, I used to compete, right? I've only done 5 competitions in my sad bodybuilding career. In my last competition, I remember it was like a really crazy cycle that I did. Like, I for sure overdid it. Like, I was taking everything except for HGH just because I couldn't afford it. But I would never do cardio because
Just because I couldn't afford it. It's like,
yeah,
yeah,
no, if I had the money, dude, I would have been doing 10 IUs a fucking day, guaranteed.
God, that's Liver King doses.
Yeah, it's Liver King doses, dude.
Shout
Straight
out
up.
69 IU a week.
Yeah, 100%. Yo, no, I'm joking. I would probably do 4. I'd probably do 4 if I had money. I think 4 is plenty. So I would never do cardio, right? Because I heard, what's his name? He used to compete against Ronnie Coleman, finally beat him one year, the white
Jacob.
guy. Yeah. I heard him saying, oh, like cardio is not necessary during a prep. You could just do strength training and resistance training, because strength training does actually increase fat oxidation, right? They're like the recovering from it. So yeah, fuck yeah, fuck yeah. I don't even need to do cardio. I hate doing cardio. So I never did cardio. And this went on for years, never doing cardio, just training, right? After my last competition, which was 4 years ago, it didn't go very well. I think I was just doing too much training, too much overtraining. Like, I was doing a crazy split, dude. I was training in the morning and at night 4 or 5 times a week, and I just couldn't stop. Like, I was growing, so like, fuck it, I'm just gonna keep going, knowing that it's a bad decision to do that much training. But like, I couldn't sleep, and the diet was really hard, and emotionally it was very difficult, and I placed horribly. So like, like this shit just isn't for me, and I'm like destroying everything in my life, giving up so much to do it just wasn't worth it anymore. So that's when I just started like training normally, doing tests. So I still take testosterone once a week. I do like I do 3 shots a week. I do 3 shots of what's it called, testosterone cypionate, because it's the slow absorbing one. And I take about 200 milligrams a week, which would be on the higher end of an HRT dose. But like, that's just what I've been taking, and I've been on that HRT dose for the last 4 years, nonstop. Still wasn't really considering doing cardio. Then like about a year or 2 ago, I started noticing that my breathing just wasn't the same. And sometimes I would have these like weird heart palpitations. they would be very, very infrequent, but sometimes they would occur, and it would like make me have to like kind of like I felt like I had to gasp for air, but I wasn't really gasping. And I'm like, damn, like this is strange. I've never had this before. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, yo, I should probably start doing some cardio. And I just got after it. My favorite cardio is the air dyne. I just feel like it's so effective, right? Because like you got your arms going, your legs going, and I do hit cardio on the air dyne. So I like doing between 5 and 15 seconds hard as fuck, and then like a 45-minute rest in between sets. And I'll do like minimum 3 sets depending on how I feel. I like to go for usually like minimum 5, but like around like 8 to 10, I start feeling like sick. Like I just, it's too much for me. So I found like the between 5 and 6 sets has been the sweet spot for me. And I've noticed many improvements. And the most significant improvement is my breathing and my heart. I never have any breathing issues now, and I don't have any of those weird like heart palpitations that I had before. And I feel just a lot healthier and a lot better. And I finally enjoy doing cardio because I just understand that it's necessary. It's just necessary, and it is what it is.
Yeah. No, so, couple of things there. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. Good to hear and learn about those things. You, you're right. So what it is when you just do the strength training, okay, that's one dimension. Life is multi-dimensional. There are many dimensions in life. When you over-optimize in one dimension, you indirectly unoptimize in other dimensions. Okay. Now, I fell into that same trap early on with the no cardio, right? It's like if I got to grow maximally, I got to eat all these calories. I don't want to walk and burn unnecessary calories because they could just be going to my muscle growth. So I'm not going to walk around and like, I'm just going to eat, sleep, train, repeat, like nothing else. And it affected my training negatively, right? Because cardio is incredibly important. It directly affects your ability to recover, right? Like the greater your cardio is to a point, right? The more your body can, utilize oxygen to produce energy in your body to complete, pathways for repair and all this different stuff, right? So having a well-functioning cardiovascular system is essential for optimal gains, right? Not doing any cardio is not optimal for long-term gains. You're just painting yourself into a corner that at some point you're going to have to try and get out of, and it's going to be really hard. Now, another concept that I'd like to riff off with what you just said is, that heart palpitation stuff. So when you're strength training, when you lift heavy weights, you do get an acute increase in blood pressure, okay, where the pressure in your vascular system increases. Now, there's two things to discuss there, right? All the tissues in your body are elastic to some degree, which means that they can expand and contract or lengthen and contract, right? To some degree. Bones are probably some of the least elastic stuff in the body, and skin and muscles, and vascular tissue are quite elastic. Now, the reason why doing some HIIT and doing moderate intensity cardio, just like going for a walk and even doing some jogging and different things at different heart rate levels for different periods of time, is it exposes your body to different levels of volatility, right? And it forces your tissue to, the more, like, if you do it appropriately, you challenge yourself with high intensity cardio, with anaerobic exercise, with moderate intensity cardiovascular and low intensity cardiovascular for extended periods, you develop a range. You've got a range of ability, right? And that helps to maintain the elasticity of your tissue. Okay. So, the reason why people end up having heart attacks and things like that, and people say that, high blood pressure is such a bad thing. High blood pressure acutely is not bad. It's only chronically high blood pressure that's really bad. And it's not so much that the blood pressure is high. It's more of an indicator that your arteries, your vascular system has lost its elasticity. if you have a fixed pipe or a fixed diameter pipe that has no elasticity in it, if you increase the pressure in that beyond a certain point, the pipe will break. That's like your heart attack. That's your aneurysm. That's your burst blood vessel. That's all of those things. Okay. Whereas if you have a pipe or in the body, your vascular system, and it's elastic, it can expand and contract the requirements of your body because it has been doing it, right? Then you don't end up with that high blood pressure, because when your blood pressure increases, your vascular system expands to handle it. Yeah. And as the blood pressure drops down, your vascular system shrinks back down to adapt it. So it's actually the rigidity in our structures, in our blood vessels, in our arteries. It's the rigidity that is the actual problem. And the way you get rigidity is not challenging it. Yeah. If it just always sits there, like at that diameter, that's what it'll stay at. Whereas if you're constantly making it move, you keep it elastic. And that's why, like, you move it or lose it, use it or lose it, that kind of thing. And that's why just doing the bodybuilding without doing the cardio is silly. It's one-dimensional. You want to try and get all of those stimuluses in an appropriate dose, right? You can bias towards one more than the other depending on your goals, but don't neglect them completely. Don't take that out. Don't take that training data out from your body, and don't stop exposing your body to that different stimulus. It's the variety that really matters. That kind of makes sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely, dude. Well said. Well said. Rubes, I got to get going because I have to wake up very early tomorrow, and I still have to download videos from the drone and the camera. And
I get it. You don't even need to explain, guy.
how do you want to conclude then, guy?
Well, what I'll say is we covered a bunch of stuff. We'll put a doc down in the description that goes over a bunch of different training modalities. So I've got a doc here that's got linear periodization, block periodization, conjugate program, DUP, daily undulating periodization. I've got a bunch of stuff that we've gone through with examples of that. And I'll try to, I'll also try and put together a doc. Hopefully it'll be in the description. About that volatility concept, about exposing your tissues to different stimuluses to maintain that elasticity. Right? You want to expose your tissues to volatility, and that's difference of activity. That's difference of experience and stimulus. But otherwise, I thought it was great. Thank you very much for your personal shares. I really appreciate that. It gives some insight, and I think it's a good thing to be open and honest.
Thank you. Thank you, bro.
Other than that, fucking have a wicked sleep. Enjoy your day tomorrow. Film shit out of whatever you're filming. And next time you go to fight in the gym, guy, maybe second guess it.
Nice, guy. Nice. Okay.
Peace. Don't forget to like and subscribe, you fuckers. Sorry.
That's right. Nice, guy. All right, bro. Peace.
Peace.